I want to start, Mike. Obviously, you're currently the MD of Lyrical Communications, which is now part of my 19 group. If my maths and my research is correct, I understand that you've been within the B2B trade show and exhibition industry for pretty much 2 decades.
Yeah, that is about right, Dan.
That's about right.
Yes.
I think we're all of a certain age here, so none of us need to be feel bad about it.
Indeed.
Obviously, you've had roles at Easy Fairs, Food Matters, and obviously Lyrical. I just want to start off by asking you, I guess, what attracted you to the industry initially?
Well, yeah, I suppose I fell into it, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on, I think, if you don't mind. But yes, came out of university and needed to get a job, and fell into the media space. I was very fortunate actually to join an independent publishing company with a founder who was someone I learned a lot from. So I was very fortunate, independent publishing, and then events. They launched actually one of the first events to run at Excel over 20 years ago.
Sure.
In the digital printing and digital camera space. So yeah, that's how I got into the sector.
What's kept you in it for so long? What do you enjoy most about it?
Good. Yeah, good question. After I left St John Patrick Publishers, which was the first business that I worked for, I had a 9 months at IAR, and was then very fortunate to move with David Wood when he established International Business Events, and we ran security events in London and in Dubai. And at the same time, he and a wider team started to run a big construction show, which was EcoBuild. And the reason I mention that is that those two sectors, those two events, those two projects, I thought they were quite exciting. Face to face, chatting to people, understanding challenges of businesses. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I learned from someone who took it seriously. It was important to him, and understanding sectors was important, and I think that's why I've stayed. It was, I wouldn't say necessarily a passion, but not far off.
Sure, it's grown with you. So we're going to get towards present day. In 2019, for those that aren't aware, you decided to join up with Eoin McManus, and he had been the owner, founder of Lyrical Communications since 2007. Before we get into sort of the detail, and we're going to talk about all things InstallerSHOW and what you've done over there, can you share your thoughts as to why you took up the opportunity at that time? And you referenced just a minute ago in your intro that you'd worked with a founder, and that seems to have been sort of common trait over the last number of years that we've mentioned. So just cast your mind back 3 or 4 years, why you decided to take up that opportunity with Eoin.
Yeah, a number of reasons. I suppose one, I go back to EcoBuild. During the EcoBuild, we sold EcoBuild to UBM in 2011, and about 2 years later, for reasons I'm not aware of, UBM stopped running their energy portfolio. And the energy sector was always quite interesting. It's quite dynamic. It's obviously quite important to the running of the country.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of kept abreast of the sector whilst we were running a food and drink event. And I'd known Eoin during the EcoBuild days and sort of kept an eye on him. And yeah, and I suppose that was the reason I knocked on his door. There was a definite opportunity in the market, and Eoin had an established, credible, respected business, and so we had lunch.
all good journeys and stories start with a lunch. I want to talk about the InstallerSHOW, the 2023 edition, from what I've read, if I'm not mistaken, had 450 exhibitors, footprint of around 25,000 square meters, 15,000 visitors, but it wasn't always that way. If you cast your mind back to sort of 2019. For those that aren't aware, just tell us a bit about the InstallerSHOW and what the event looked like when you joined Lyrical and you joined up with Eoin.
Yeah, I think it's worth just giving a little bit of background to what Lyrical was, I suppose.
Sure.
Background is journalism and PR, and he'd been running the Installer magazine for many years, and then saw an opportunity to launch the Installer Show at Lyrico with a team really that had no experience of running events. So his background was very much in publishing. The team was very much publishing and editorially sort of focused. So I was joining a business that had established trust in the market through publishing, had launched an event necessarily on the back of a huge amount of experience of doing it, and had a core group of people that liked it. But as you mentioned, the growth of the show has been quite phenomenal over the last few years, and that's down to the work and the foundations that Ian built over the course of like 12 years before I joined. I can take you through some of the dynamics about why I think the event has grown over the last four or so years, and where we go. But yeah, he set the tone, and did the groundwork, and I suppose I've just taken the glory, really.
A little bit of excessive modesty. I mean, I think what you said about the trusting is so important, Mike, isn't it? You know, the print publication, but also the relationships in the industry. There's almost an element of perfect timing when you met Ian, because he knew he wanted to grow it, and he didn't have the person that had your background, the ability to synthesize those things into a growth plan. So it happened quite quickly. And I know there were some negotiations, but it was quite organic the way you two came together, I thought.
No, it was very much, and I suppose one of the reasons why this has worked is that it's a sort of slightly unlikely marriage. We got two quite different skill sets, and that's one of the reasons why this project has worked very well. The market has also changed significantly over the last 4 years. So building on the success and the foundations that Ian and his team had made and created sort of has become slightly easier because of the dynamics of the market, disruption in technology, disruption of the market, technology driven, etc., etc. So there are lots of things that have given us the opportunity. What we've done is created a team, built a team, and a business that is now trusted across lots of different sectors, rather than just their relatively narrow core group. So, and lots of opportunity in the future as well.
So, just going back to 2019, I mentioned some of the numbers about 2023. Can you just give us a sort of comparative? So, where the show was when you came in?
Yeah, so the show was running at the Rico. It was running, taking 4,000 square meters of space. It was pretty consistent for 3 or so years. COVID hit, obviously, pretty much as soon as I'd arrived at Liverpool, which is joyous timing. But what that did give us was an opportunity to look at our data and look at the direction of travel of the business. And I know this is a bit of a cliche, but COVID helped because it allowed us to reset and to look at what the future growth would be. I think if we hadn't had that opportunity, I'm not sure necessarily we would have grown so fast. So going back to growth, your question, so it's gone from a 4,000 square meter show in 2019. We'll do 40,000 or so gross for 2024. The numbers were 100 exhibitors. There will be over 600 for this year's event. Visitor numbers should top 20,000 for this year's event. Going back to the days of 2019, there were about 4,000. So you can see some sort of, it's quite significant growth here. The exciting thing is that we're not at the top of the mountain, and we're only just starting. And I think that's what gives us, that's what's exciting.
Sure.
Going back to your point about why this sector is interesting. We're not going to run out of people to come and visit. We're not going to run out of people to exhibit. So I think that's why this part of the market is a good one.
Someone's listening and they listen to that sort of trajectory of growth. It'd be good to understand from you how you and the team have gone about that. So you mentioned personnel, so we can imagine that you've built a team. be interesting to understand the dynamic of the community you represent, how you've sort of taken them on the journey to achieve that. So just give us a sense of some of the building blocks that you put in place, some of the things you did.
My view of the event or media sector, that they should be representative of the industry they serve. So you should put a series of building blocks in place, a jigsaw puzzle together of what the sector looks like from an exhibitor, visitor, association, influencer perspective, and that was one of the things that we set out to achieve. So who are we missing? Who's key to this? Who's core to the direction of travel of the market? If that's where your head's at about what you want to achieve, you can build that. It takes a bit of time, but if that's the challenge and that's the opportunity, then I think that's a strong starting point. So you don't play with your best friends. You go and look for people who are influencing the market, whether that's, as I said, whether that's government, whether that's other media, whether that's associations, whether that's exhibitors, whether that's influencers, or whoever it may be. The team dynamic is that important as well. So experience is key. I think there's got to be a right dynamic of a proper dynamic in a sales or marketing or content team of a sense of team. That to me is key. This is the best business I've worked at where the sales, marketing, and content functions work together, and I think that's one of the failings of most media and events businesses. Everyone does things in silos. I don't think we talk to each other. So I think that's one of the things that we encourage, and that is certainly working. Just I suppose empowering people and making sure that we are ambitious.
Mike, do you think it helps that you and Ian have both publishing background in terms of that interdisciplinary bit, that it hasn't come from the pure play event background?
No, I think one of the, as I mentioned, during COVID, we looked at our data. You know this very well, Piers, because some of your team helped us to look at it. And again, a bit of a cliche, but it is data. That's what we are. A lot of that is why a big corporate organisation turning over billions of pounds would look to a media or events business and say, actually, we like what you do. You provide something that we have a challenge to meet, and you can help us to develop their business. And I think that's one of the things that going back to that, like why Ian and I have worked well together, is that his publishing and my events background have been brought together by this search for data from a lot of organisations, and because of the work that we did during COVID, we provide a service, a solution for lots of organisations who value what we do, and that's important. And the more you talk about that it's not 3 days and bust. The more you talk about that 365 opportunity, the more you talk about content, the more you talk about data, I think you become more important to the sector. I think that's dead important. And I'd be pretending if I was a thoroughbred in digital publishing. But I've learned a lot over the last 4 years, and I would recommend lots of events businesses to look at their data and look at their 365 approach.
Yeah, and I know, Piers, you've got some questions around the sort of hybrid digital media piece that you wanted to ask Mike.
I suppose a bit of thinking about the shape of the business. So for the people listening, how much of what you do, without giving away too much commercially, is events versus digital media? And then the related point is, how integrated is it from the audience's experience point of view and from the client management point of view, sort of a single point of sale and so on?
I think from a visitor and reader perspective, I mean, COVID taught us a lot that the world moves on very quickly, doesn't it? Events businesses run events over 3 days. The world changes quite significantly year to year, or if you're running an event every 2 years, even more so. And that content piece, that trust, that that importance to the market. You're providing content, or you're providing education, providing learnings for that sector over the course of the whole year. It helps you test content to then roll it out of the show. It helps you to get to know clients better, so you're not 3 days and bust. There's lots of learnings. There's lots of benefits of doing it in that sort of way. There's quite a lot of challenges as well, but I think the challenges, are certainly outweighed by the opportunities of getting really under the skin of the visitor, the core visitor, and your big tier one clients, if that's the right term.
Yeah. And so the clients buy from you at one time per year, or do you have separate sales teams who do digital versus events?
Yeah, the importance of becoming a consultant, a more consultant approach from a content marketing and sales to a big corporate is important. So our sales team is very, very, very much around key account management, around managing the accounts, putting the effort into the people that are key to the direction of travel of the market, and making sure that you are gaining trust again and becoming important to their year-round marketing plan. So, and if you start to become important to their year-round marketing plan, then you're going to have more touch points throughout the year. You're going to understand more people in their businesses. You're going to understand their business more, and they're going to understand your business more. And that's dead important. Becoming more than just an event, I think, is crucial for brand building.
And it'd be useful to understand how you've sort of evolved the content, both of the show and sort of some of the other offerings throughout the year. Because I know, obviously it's heavily focused on technology, possibly wasn't always that way. How do you keep up and that's sort of ahead of the curve, to use a much overused phrase, but again, someone that's listening that maybe is responsible for content on their show or their community, how do you go about doing that to make sure you continue to stay relevant?
Going back to when we were not running events in 2020 and 2021, we ran a number of digital festivals. Very, very straightforward, very simple, all around data acquisition and data management and content and education and training. So we're playing into the audience's wants and needs. And all we're doing is mirroring that at the show. So what we're looking at training, we're looking at education. I think content also can be consumed in lots of different ways, and I think that's very important. So from an event perspective, events don't have to be stayed. You can try and create some sort of festival feel. I think that's important. So and therefore your content creation and your content delivery can be done in lots of different ways. You don't all have to be sitting there in rows listening to someone on a PowerPoint, whether that's getting celebrities involved, whether that's getting key influencers involved, whether just doing it in different ways.
Sure.
I think that's really, really important, and it just highlights that you've thought about it. I think that's quite important for the industry to know that this matters. This matters to you, and those would be my thoughts on that one.
Sure, because there's been lots of talk about the different changing and ever-evolving experience, I guess, of people that are coming to the event, whether it's the visitor or the exhibitor. And you mentioned festivalization again. That's sort of a word that people use a lot on this program. So you're seeing much more of that. Is that something you're conscious of, that you're very much sort of custodians of their experience when they're coming on site?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to my Ecobuild experience, and we talk about an event. See, even if you use the word event and the word trade show to me, not wildly exciting. An event is more exciting, and you're not going to go to, the InstallerSHOW is not Glastonbury. It's close, but it's not quite Glastonbury. But Glastonbury has lots of different things going on for lots of different people, lots of different demographics. As long as it sticks to its core audience and it understands what his core audience is, he can then attract lots of people who are connected to that industry. And that's dead important, whether that's content driven, whether that's encouraging your exhibitors to do various things, whether that's from an organiser's point of view of feeding and watering your guests, or putting entertainment on, or whatever it may be. You should go to an event because you want to, not because you're compelled to do so. And I think that is the shaping of an event. It should entice you in. It should bring you in, rather than it being, oh bloody hell, I've got to go to that event again.
Sure.
So yeah.
Okay. I just want to touch upon, we've spoken a little bit about the relationship with Eoin, and obviously you've worked with a few founders in the past. I'm just interested to know how you have to adapt your style when working closely with a founder. Are there any sort of specific challenges or advantages that you want to sort of reference in today's conversation?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I've worked with three founders. Eoin is quite unusual in the fact that he is open to change and to ideas. I think one of the things I'd learned is really to take things relatively slowly, just to understand the dynamic of the business. Gain trust. I was brought up in Lancashire. I don't know if that's the thing, but it is. You roll your sleeves up and get on with it. So don't. This is the way I do it, and doesn't necessarily work for everyone. But sort of, get your hands dirty in the early days as well. Gain trust. Prove you can do it. So all the talk is just more than talk, and also acknowledge the fact that the incumbent team have knowledge that you don't, and build on that, use that. I think that's really, really, really important. Eoin and I, have had our moment, but we can all sit and have a drink and glass of wine or whatever, and laugh about it now. So
sure. I was going to ask,
yeah.
what's the biggest challenge typically do you find working with someone that's set up a business?
I think it is. It's about It's sort of about proving yourself, and that's a challenge. That's a good challenge to take on. If you can demonstrate that you're going to make a difference relatively early on, obviously that is another element of gaining trust. Yeah, and just taking things slowly, and not trying to force things too much, because founders got history, and with that comes, in certain cases, some emotion, and that's important to recognise. So don't go steaming in, basically.
Sure.
It's interesting because I think you're absolutely right about that organic approach. As a serial founder myself, we're very careful to do that with my business. But there's also a moment quite early, I think it was very early on in your relationship with Eoin, where he was already talking about it as your business. Ask Mike about that. That happened relatively early on, I think, in your relationship, just as a person on the outside dealing with Eoin, which I thought was interesting. And maybe COVID accelerated it, but I think the fact that you didn't rock the boat, you focused on what was right for the customers and the products, was a really important part of that, looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that, not forcing things too much. I would also say that, as a founder, Eoin is very open to discussions, and that doesn't always happen. I think as a founder, if you're looking to bring someone into a business to help scale or change or whatever it may be, I think you've got to acknowledge that change will happen, and you've got to be comfortable with that. And if you're not comfortable with that, don't go into it. I think that's dead important. It's quite unusual in that respect, that he saw the opportunity and saw working with someone with a slightly different skill set was going to be advantageous for everyone. So yeah.
Cool. So Piers, I'll let you move on to the wonderful world of 19 group.
Yeah. Well, maybe Mike, just going back a little bit further, when you joined up with Eoin, exit was on the agenda. What was your original intention in terms of how long you might do it and what sort of shape the business might be in at the point where you wanted to take on a strategic partner?
Well, initially the plan was to launch an event in London to to complement Ian's event at the RECO, the InstallerSHOW, and to grow a pure events business, or less publishing focus. COVID sort of slightly changed that, and as I said, gave us the opportunity of looking at our data and looking at our approach. So yeah, we set out with a slightly different business case to where we are now. I still have the Excel spreadsheet that we went through on what the opportunity might look like in 2022 and 2023, which is significantly different than where we are today in a positive way. So
yeah. I suppose a related point is the revenue mix. So the show wasn't too much of the business when you started. It's now the predominant revenue stream, but digital is high margin. Digital's a big part of the business. And there was, in discussions with potential investors post-COVID, there was always a question about, well, how much of this business in the future should be digital? Should we be accelerating it? Should we be holding it back? What's the balance with the show? Having been through the deal, which we'll come to, what's your perspective on direction of travel on revenue mix and business model?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the revenue mix has changed significantly over the last 2 years. I think what it has shown, though, is that the share of wallet from the key tier 1 clients across digital platforms on our event is the majority of is where the majority of the business's revenue comes from, and that's dead important because you've got certainty there. Certainty to any business is really important. Certainty to events business, incredibly important, and you've got certainty because you understand the client mix, and if they're spending across the year, then whatever that mix is, whatever that percentage mix is between digital and show, as long as it's focused on the key bellwether clients, then you've got the right. I think you've got the right model. We will continue to build on that. Whatever that percentage mix is, I don't think it necessarily matters.
Yeah,
as long as there is a mix.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you talk about the value of the business being in with tier 1 accounts, but before you talked about the growth. One of the standout statistics is going from 100 to 600 exhibitors. Is the intention to take that key account approach deeper into kind of the tier 2 clients as well, or to grow the show with the smaller clients and grow spend with the bigger clients, and not try and bring that key account approach down to the tier 2s?
Yeah, I think it's putting your effort and your time and your thought into the people that as I said, are shaping the market. The people are driving the dynamics of the market. And if you do that, if you do more of that, you will understand the market better. You will understand your position in the market better, and you will become more important in the market. You've got to understand where this the startup layer is going, but don't get lost necessarily in the lower tiers, because they aren't driving change, and that's definitely something this business is doing much better than it did 5 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. And with 19, sort of long running set of conversations, really, without giving too much away. What made you go with them? It's sort of their approach really preempted any sort of formal process that we might have been thinking about, which is sometimes the right thing and not always. What prompted you and Ian to take the offer and move quickly with 19?
Yeah, we flirted with each other at an earlier stage. I have known Peter and Alison for quite a long time in various capacities, either in competition with Peter or at one point working for Alison. Their approach was very open. Their approach is it's quite entrepreneurial. It's quite it's very similar to the way that we're trying to run our lyrical business, quite dynamic. So that gave comfort and it felt like they felt like the right sorts of people to work with, and that's still important. Obviously, the way that their business is set up as well is it gives you autonomy, and they were quite keen to to highlight and talk that through, and that gave us confidence that definitely the right partner.
And just the last question on 19. Your business model is they've in the past acquired trade show businesses and left the publishing businesses with the founders. They've now acquired a couple of hybrid businesses like yours and Hennick. What do you think you've brought to 19 in terms of wider skill sets, awareness, anything, any conversations around that you think has added extra value to the deal for them?
Yeah, I mean, we are slightly different than you mentioned. Hennick, we're probably more similar in our model to Hennick than other parts of the 19 group. I think that tier one hybrid approach has been encouraged around other parts of the business. The data work that we've done is being implemented across other parts of the business. It's quite a sharing culture at 19, and I've learned a lot as well. We brought a bit of. I think we brought a bit of experience to the sales process, and I think our events businesses encourage face-to-face learnings. One of my bugbears about a lot of events businesses, especially sales teams, is they sit on the phone all the time. I don't understand why would you do that if you're encouraging face-to-face or face-to-face engagement, go and see your client, and we encourage that, and I think the 19 group are starting to do more of that. So maybe that's what I would point to what we brought to the business.
Just Mike, just to finish up, just really interested to know what the sort of future holds for you personally, for the show, and also given we are in early January, it'd be remiss of me to sort of maybe ask you for some predictions for 2024 for the wider trade show and exhibition world. But starting with sort of what the future holds for you and the show, give us a flavour of what this year is going to look like and future years.
Yeah, what does this year look like? We see significant growth for 2024. We've got some quite big plans for 2025, which are being worked through at the moment. Of the sector that our part of 19 group are involved in, is that, as I said, I think during this conversation, is that we're not going to run out of people to come and visit or exhibit at this event. So we have a big growth opportunity.
Sure.
There are sectors in the market that we could start to involve that we aren't at the moment in the show. I think further establishing our 365 credentials and making sure that we remain top of the pile in our sector, that would be my wish for 2024. Possible launch is maybe internationalization potentially of brand. Definitely opportunity there, and that would tie potentially in nicely with recent acquisition of 19. We've learned a lot from Oliver Kinross are doing now as part of the 19 group, so that's encouraging. Further recruitment as well, so we'll continue to grow the team. When it comes to predictions, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've got any wildly exciting predictions, but I would encourage. I would go back to that festivalisation. I think it's dead important. Creating events, the sector becoming more important to the sectors that they serve. So it's not a prediction, but that would be my thing. What the other thing that I'll just say, because I think this is dead important. I think the events industry needs to challenge itself about being a destination for graduates, for people who are not falling into the sector. So we get away from that. So that's not a prediction; it's a want. We can. This industry could become quite important. I'm not sure necessarily we're taking that seriously. And I think we've got an opportunity. I think 19 are quite pivotal in that, actually, because they're dynamic, innovative, fast-growing organisation. They are not stayed. There's lots of work that's being done in the background around this business that around people, around culture, and those sorts of important things. And I think if the events industry can do more of that, then I think it will do itself a world of good.
Perfect. Someone who fell in 29 years ago, I couldn't agree with you more. It's literally, I think, 29 years and a month since I first did 3 days of temp work in a conference company. Mike, this just putting your comments into a bigger context. In other markets, we've seen, a rush to live. Some of this is seen by investors as a post-COVID bounce, some of it isn't. And in some other markets in 2023, we've seen digital spend drop, sometimes moving across to events. It sounds like from what you're saying, A, you think the growth of the business is sustainable, the events business is sustainable, and B, you haven't seen that impact on your digital spend either. So maybe that's to do with your sector, or it might be to do with your position in the sector. But you haven't seen those big swings of budget one way or the other.
No, we haven't. I'd written some sort of thoughts and notes down, and is a COVID bounce still a thing? I mean, how long can we talk about that? I'm not quite sure.
According to a private equity investor in December, still now.
Right, okay, fine. Okay. I do think it's sort of dependent on your sector. It's sort of dependent on what positioning you have in the market. And we're fortunate that we're number one in the market. But by having that digital and events mix, it keeps you at the top of it should keep you at the top of the tree. We've not seen digital fall off, but I do think that's because of the focus on the right sort of client and the right sort of relationship, which was drilled into us by your colleague Piers.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Mike, we wish you the very best of luck. We look forward to seeing the continued progress of both yourself and the InstallerSHOW and what you do at 19. Piers, being a great co-host as always. Thank you so much.